so happy we alive.
Information to let you do it, well, then my job is being done. Now, mind you, these aren't always outright lies. The facts in any debate are nuanced. Things are rarely simply black and white. One example of this, drug warriors frequently refer to the number of, the increasingly large numbers of marijuana users who are getting referred to drug treatment, and which is true. But if you look at the data, it reveals that the bulk of these are because of people are trying to avoid hassles with law enforcement. Basically, they're being ordered to because their alternative is going to jail. And meanwhile, people who need help, people who actually want to have help with their problems, don't come forward. And why? Because they're afraid of admitting that they break the law. And if they could find affordable treatment in the first place. So you see, if we're concerned about addiction, then we have to legalize drugs. By peeling away the layers of distortion and wishful thinking which obscure the facts, we can finally reach the core of the debate, and by doing that, we will win. You see, in common sense, we believe that an informed public will inevitably demand rational drug policies. We're really optimistic. But on the other hand, if we didn't have hope, if we didn't believe, then we couldn't do this. CSDP provides a number of resources to carry out this educational mission, many of them on the web. Our sites are constantly expanding as new items are added, new subjects are covered. They're really useful tools. Please do check them out. Our most popular is the eponymous website csdp.org. Through it, we provide current news and information on a lot of topics with links to source articles, other organizations, all that kind of stuff. We try to go past the headlines to find the whole story. I've finally started providing an RSS feed too for those of you who are using newsreaders, so it's a lot easier to keep up to date with things that are happening. All that's on our website. And we also run a public service advertising campaign. Our website has a full set of those ads from the last 7 years. And there are also copies of those ads at the registration desk. Now these PSAs run in selected major opinion and political commentary periodicals, including Reason, which is not why I'm on this panel today. The check's in the mail. Our flagship website, of course, is drugwarfacts.org. Drug War Facts is an archive of research and data on drug control policies. And he said it, but modestly speaking, it is an essential resource for anyone who's interested in drug control policy or in drugs. The new print edition is going to be done in a few weeks. I'm sorry that it's not here. It's at the printers. I have the final approval, which is going out. It'll be printed soon. Get in touch with us. On the other hand, use the web version. It's available in HTML, it's in PDF, it's in plain text, it's updated regularly, and it's free. And if, for those of you browsing the web on your PDAs, we're going to have a version in wireless markup language soon. I just have to get the manual and learn it. I like doing that, it's fun. And one of our lesser known sites is Drug War Distortions, drugwardistortions.org. And this is actually the site I enjoy the most. In Drug War Distortions, what we do is deconstruct, debunk, or at least explain some of these nuanced arguments, including questions about drug use estimates and the gateway theory and cannabis and drug treatment. And I recently added a section to Drug War Distortions, which deals with the assertion that marijuana use contributes to violent behavior. You heard that right. ONDCP says that, quote, research shows that kids who use marijuana weekly are nearly 4 times more likely than non-users to report they engage in violent behavior, end quote. And to back up their assertion, the Czar's office quotes 2 studies. The first, from the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, actually does show that young people who admit on federal surveys that they are frequent marijuana users also admit to engaging in other problem behaviors. The researcher at least was honest enough to admit that there's no evidence of causality in any direction. ONDCP kind of let that part out. The second study was published in the Journal of Addictive Diseases, and that study did find some correlation between admitted marijuana use and some violent behaviors. The researchers, however, noted that people studied, all of whom were drug users from the inner city who were African Americans of lower socioeconomic status. That these people were not representative of the population as a whole, weren't even representative of a typical inner city, lower SES African American community. They also noted that the marijuana use could have been an attempt to control violent tendencies. That is, it was probably self-medication. But again, that doesn't fit into ONDCP's worldview, and so truthiness, once again, rears its ugly head. Now, with a little bit of research, we find the real truth. I'm going to keep within time. So in closing, there are a lot of resources out there. The important things are to question, to learn, and to respond. Never, ever accept arguments at face value. Not even mine. Always look for proof. The real truth, you know, like they say, really is out there. Thank you all very much. Have a terrific time.
Our next speaker is Chris Conrad, and I'd like to say a couple of things about Chris. He reminds me of the old-fashioned newsman in that he vigilantly puts out the Oaksterdam News, which is a labor of love. It's the guy who's in the community, writing about the community, and incredible amount of zeal that goes into this publication. It was actually through Oaksterdam News, before I had ever met Chris. I was doing some research on dispensaries in California, and he had a complete listing of all of the dispensaries at that time. It changes pretty regularly as they get closed or shut down and whatnot. But it was very helpful, and between MapQuest and Chris's work, I was able to plot on a map where all of the dispensaries were in Los Angeles, and it wasn't until I had done that that I realized that there's a 1-mile strip on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood that had over 50% of the dispensaries at that time. And it was because the local officials there are working with the activists to work out a regulatory regime of implementation of the medical cannabis laws in California. The other thing that Chris is known for is industrial hemp. He has been writing on that issue for a long, long time. And I'm very hopeful right now because there's a bill in the California legislature, I don't know the exact status, between Mark Leno on the Democrat side and Chuck DeVore on the Republican side, and it looks like there's a pretty good chance that we are going to have industrial hemp in California passed in this session. And if we do, we'll all need to say thanks to Chris, as well as many people who are at this conference, but he's certainly been driving this issue for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Conrad.
All right, thanks David. Thanks everybody for this panel and for hanging out with us today. I'm going to actually go PowerPoint on you. And theoretically, we've solved the issues here, although I know the first thing is that it's not lighting up.
Here it goes.
There we go. And now that one's out over there for some reason. Whatever. We'll get around to that. And I think that the idea of rhetoric, you've been hearing some interesting stuff. And what he was talking about, the Leno bill on industrial hemp, which is passed by the Assembly and is in the Senate right now, they put a word in there that could have screwed up the whole bill, which is that they said they had to use indigenous seeds from California. And of course, there's not really indigenous seed in California, so we got them to change that to say hemp seed that comes from within the state of California, which is quite different. And it could really affect the way the whole law goes on that regard. Anyway, we've been talking about a lot of different things. I want to talk to you about how you win a debate without knowing anything, through the power of persuasion. And what that means is that you're familiar with substance, set, and setting. I'm going to use it in a little different format right now. The substance is the facts that you already know. The set is the audience that you're talking in, the setting in which you're doing it. The set is the set of facts that you're trying to get across, and the setting is the audience and the situation in which you're presenting this information. If facts were the answer, we would have won a long time. There would have been one edition of drug war facts, and it would have all ended. Apparently that didn't happen. So what we need to do is to find a way of getting the communication out here, and the first thing is to come up with a 3-point theme. That's when I started Business Alliance for Commerce at Hemp. The first thing I did was talk about separating medical marijuana from hemp and discussing each of them separately, never denigrating any of them. I don't say, well, hemp is important, the other ones aren't, or vice versa, but to say, like, each of them individually has merit and deserves to be legalized, and we combine all three of them, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't have done so by now. We take the medical marijuana issue, we talk about safe and effective and natural medicine. People like to think in threes, and it gives you a nice little way of handling that whole situation. And then the other, I'm going to just go through this rather than